Good morning and welcome to the Leukemia Foundation webinar, Discovering the Benefits of Yoga for Cancer Wellbeing. It's a pleasure to welcome you and our guest speaker, Sophie Patnicroft-Gray, blood cancer survivor and yoga instructor. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting today. I pay my respects to elders past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. We honour the deep connection First Nations peoples have to land, water, community, and well-being. As we move through today's gentle yoga practice, may we do so with a sense of grounding, respect, and gratitude for the wisdom and care embedded in this country. Just a couple of housekeeping matters before we get started. Just to let you know that both sessions are being recorded and will be sent to registered participants after the second session. For the best experience, we recommend that you set your screen to the speaker view. And we'll start off with a short Q&A session to set the scene about what yoga is and to answer some of your pre-submitted questions. While the chat function will be on, it won't be very active because we are hoping that you will be fully immersed in the yoga practice that we'll be sharing with you today. But if you do have any critical questions or comments to make, please feel free to add them into the chat. So this session is all about giving yourself a moment to slow down and reconnect, both physically and emotionally. Research shows that yoga can help with stress, mood, and overall quality of life. And today you'll get to experience a little bit of that for yourself. Today we'll be focusing on calming techniques, slowing down, relaxing, and finding your ground. Next week, we'll move into some energizing practices to boost your energy. There is an important note before we begin. The information and activities shared in this session are intended for general wellbeing and educational purposes only. They are not a substitute for professional medical advice. And please consult your doctor before beginning or modifying any exercise practice. For the purposes of the yoga demonstration, participants acknowledge that they are participating voluntarily and take full responsibility for their own health and wellbeing. Participants will listen to their body and will stop at any point they feel unwell or experience discomfort. Please be mindful, in particular if you have a history of low blood pressure or low blood counts, bony lesions or fragile bones susceptible to fracture, medication side effects, or any pain-related issues. So now that we've got that out of the way, I'd like to welcome our esteemed guest speaker, Sophie Patnicroft-Gray. Sophie was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia in 2019 at the tender age of 29. She had a stem cell transplant later that same year from an unrelated donor and has been in remission ever since. After leaning on yoga and mindfulness practice heavily throughout her recovery, Sophie underwent her yoga teacher training and now teaches in Adelaide. She's undertaken further education in accessible yoga, yoga for cancer, and working with those with disabilities. She's now running her Yoga After Cancer, coming home to the body course in person in Adelaide and now shortly online. So we're going to kick off with a short Q&A to find out a little bit more about you, Sophie, your blood cancer experience, and also your professional yoga experience. And I guess how the two have intertwined in your recovery. So welcome and thank you for joining us. Can we start, thank you. Can we start by getting you to just describe very simply what yoga is?
Yes, I think yoga can be such a unique thing for different people, right? We've all got this idea of what we think yoga might be. And it might look like, someone doing some kind of pretzel contortion shape. But I think for me personally, it wasn't until I went through my blood cancer experience that I felt that I really connected to what I think is the bigger picture of yoga. And so whilst it might look, on Instagram or on social media, like this very advanced flexibility and fitness based practice, in reality, the most advanced yoga is probably the one that looks the least impressive from the outside eye. It's about coming back to this sense of well-being and the sense of feeling at home and at ease within your body. People might know or have experienced shavasana, the usually the final practice or final posture in a yoga class where you're just lying there. Like that's the key. That is what all of that movement was for, is to find that sense of inner peace. And it might not always be there, and it might not be easy to find, and particularly when we're dealing with times of stress and pressure. But it's a practice that we can keep going back to, and that we can hopefully do consistently, or get this practice that then when those times of stress come up, we're still finding that same route back to ourselves.
Wonderful.
Hard to summarize.
I actually was going to say that it probably seems like a simple question to start with, but is actually quite a complex one. But thank you for that. And I think what you've highlighted is that it really isn't that stereotype of those really awkward and contortionist type positions. And there's a lot more
Yeah.
deep work that's done in
Yes.
yoga practice.
Exactly. And if we think about the word itself, so yoga, there is the YOG, that is to yoke. So we have this sense of union between our mind, our body, our breath, and then hopefully with our loved ones that we're around, and so on and so forth. And then that kind of circle can keep getting bigger and bigger. Yeah, when it feels like that's all kind of in harmony and all aligned.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. And I think what you've highlighted there is how accessible it is, because there is so many different variations of it, and it is all about the mind and the body, that even people who are quite restricted in what they can do can access yoga, and they'll get to see that in action in just a moment. So that's really awesome for for those people watching today, that perhaps yoga is something that they can engage with in a really meaningful way. So wonderful, thank you. Can you, from your perspective, and I guess this is both the professional and the personal perspective, can you tell us a little bit about how you benefited from yoga in your experience as someone with blood cancer, perhaps during treatment and then in that post-treatment recovery period?
Yeah, sure. So I had practiced yoga for, wait, let me do the maths now. Probably about 9 or so years before I was diagnosed, and in and out, um, depending where I was and what I was doing. But that was a bit of a constant. But it wasn't until I was diagnosed and I had my stem cell transplant that there was this pocket that really wasn't that accessible to me anymore, that I didn't feel as comfortable as I did before, or really comfortable at all, going into a general yoga studio and doing the practices that I would usually do, or even doing a more gentle version. It just felt like it wasn't quite there. And often there were some things that were quite triggering around that. Whether that was being, immunocompromised in a studio, and granted, this was just before COVID, and then hearing someone cough in the back and thinking, oh no, now I can't relax, or even a teacher's cues, not really being mindful that your body is not necessarily a safe place after a blood cancer diagnosis. It's not something that you feel, oh yeah, I can just rest into, or at least I didn't personally. There was so much scope, I felt, within yoga as a practice itself that could be explored in different ways to be accessible for people that have had a cancer diagnosis, or perhaps feel like their body is not recognizable as their own anymore, or doesn't feel like their own, or, it's been medicalized. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that a lot of people can perhaps resonate to that surreal feeling when you might be in a chemo infusion, or you might be in your hospital bed and you've got 3 doctors and a registrar and 2 nurses and someone's doing your blood pressure, and you just think, I don't feel like I'm here. A couple of months ago, I was out with my friends and dancing at a wedding. It feels very separate. And from having those benefits of yoga before my diagnosis, I knew that there were these little avenues that we could go down to provide a framework that felt very safe for and inclusive and adaptive for people. And that was something that then led me to then do my yoga teacher training on the year anniversary of my stem cell transplant. And with that aim to help others in a similar situation. And fast forward 6 years later, we're here.
And that's wonderful. And now we get to benefit from your insights and your training, and perhaps share some of those benefits that you've experienced to our audience. So, and you bring up a really lovely point about that body, that trust issue with your body at the time of a diagnosis, and how yoga can really help with bringing that trust, or redeveloping or reconnecting with your body. And I think a lot of people could potentially relate to that. So wonderful. My next question, and I know Jen's been doing a great job of putting it in the chat, was around, is there research to support the use of yoga in living with cancer broadly? Because there's a lot of correlation between solid cancers and blood cancers. Lots of references in the chat for people to look at. But Sophie, did you just want to make a brief comment about some of the research and what it's just generally saying about yoga?
Yeah, I think overall, whilst there aren't quite as many studies on the effects of yoga within blood cancer specifically, what we do have and what that does show is this correlation between that and other cancers, which yoga can be a safe tool to help ease symptoms, side effects from treatment. It's something that we can add on to try and help maybe mitigate some of those feelings of distress or anxiety as part of that bigger picture. So yeah, it's a positive thing that really doesn't have much risk involved. And what I hope too is that then that's available from your home. It doesn't need to be for an hour. It can just be 5 minutes. That it's that little way that we can go back to finding ourselves and feeling aligned and good with that. So there's good promising research that tracks the benefits of mindfulness and yoga in lessening a lot of those, I guess, common issues post-cancer, blood cancer diagnosis, particularly fatigue and energy levels too. It's a great way that we can just dip in and do 5 minutes. You know, I was and probably still am a great one for setting out on a huge hike and then realizing that I've got to turn around and come back and walk the same distance. So it's really something that we can modify for us too.
Yeah, great. And the fact that we can do it as we're going to be doing it today in your own home, the comfort of your own home, which means low cost, easy to access, safe if you're immunocompromised, just makes it even more appealing. So wonderful. And as I mentioned, there's lots of research and links in the chat for people to peruse at their leisure. Just a couple of final questions. Obviously, we people in our audience today have varying blood cancers and are at different stages. How can, and you've touched on it a little bit already, but can you talk a little bit more about how yoga practice can be adapted to accommodate, varying physical needs? So perhaps, I think someone has commented in the chat about an enlarged spleen, or, someone who perhaps has stiff or painful joints, fatigue,
Yeah,
etc. Are you able to make any
yeah,
comments about
sure.
that?
I
Thanks.
think the overarching statement that I love is that we are adapting postures to suit our body. We are not bending our body and pretzeling and stressing our body to fit the pose, that we can really adapt things for wherever we are and whatever we have going on. Of course, seek advice from medical experts and ensure you have clearance from your doctor. But really, we can use what we have around us to assist. And so, by that, perhaps if there are abdominal issues, we're not taking too much pressure as we go forward. We might bring a cushion onto the lap so that we've got a bit more support rather than kind of having that pressure through the belly. So there's lots of bespoke things that we can do that are just slightly changing what we might consider a traditional look or traditional posture, although I hate using that term, that can be there for us. And I think in starting out as well, or exploring this practice, going to a level that feels like that 70 or 80% mark, stopping, assessing how do you feel after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then going from there, because we want it to be sustainable, that we feel a little bit better afterwards than we did before. So taking things slow and steady, and just being mindful of wherever you are at, how your body is speaking to you, and maybe then pulling back from that. And particularly too, yoga has that tool that we're connecting with our breath. And often we forget that we have control over our breathing, most of the time. And so when we have that reminder to connect back into the breath and know that maybe we're really breathing from the chest, we're not quite doing those full breaths, we're starting to get a little hurried or holding on, that can be a good internal reminder or note really that we can wind that down, because we want to be able to breathe fully and really smoothly and calmly as we go through our practice, particularly in more restorative yoga styles. So that's a good thing to check into too, to go, okay, a little bit less, get back to the breath, and then explore that way.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I think it again demonstrates how accessible it is, and even very small accommodations and simple amendments can make all the difference and mean that someone can actually do some of the practices without compromising their own health. So
Yeah.
thank you. Final question before we actually move into the main event, which is, how often would it be good to do yoga?
Look, I think the best yoga is the yoga that you do, whatever that may be. And
Yep.
so, look, 5 minutes uh, once a week is better than no times a week.
Yeah,
So
sure. Yep.
really, and there's different styles too. And if you can fit it into 10 minutes a day, amazing. If all it is a few breaths whilst you're doing the washing up and you ignore everyone else in the family and what's going on and you are present just doing the washing up, that's still good too.
Yeah.
There's I think because there are these, different styles and relaxation and things that there's not really a limit onto to what you can do, but whether that's once a week or 10 minutes a day for every day, it's totally up to you and whatever you can fit into your life and your schedule and how you're feeling, I think is best. Yeah, it's sorry, that's not really an answer, but I think it's so specific, really,
Yeah.
just into whatever we can do, and also not having the guilt of, I feel like I should be doing this, but I'm not, because it's about creating that harmony and that sense of calm within the body. So worrying if we're doing it too much or too little can sometimes be add into that, I found, at
Yeah.
least
Well, it's
personally.
counterproductive. Well, it's
Yeah.
counterproductive. It's doing the opposite of what you're trying to achieve with the yoga practice, isn't it? So yeah,
Yeah,
no, that
yes.
makes
And look,
sense.
there are some great practices out there that are just, 10, 15 minutes that you could just be done before bedtime to just release some stress, and get some movement through the joints, similarly in the morning. But really it's whatever that you can create that time for within your life and within your schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it is about what works within your life and your schedule as well. People are busy and
Yes.
it needs to fit. Absolutely. So
Yeah, yes, exactly. Like, yeah, I would hate to say a certain amount for someone that's maybe got 3 young children at home and having 5 minutes of quiet peace to themselves is kind of a really big thing to try and achieve each day. So whatever we can really fit in that works.
absolutely. I 100% agree. Yeah, something is better than nothing. That's right. I think that's the message from that answer. Thank you so much, Sophie. With that in mind, I'm going to hand over to you to guide us through this calm and grounding practice. What we're going to do is quieten the chat now as well, so that you get an opportunity to really be fully focused and engaged in the practice that you're about to experience. So um, I will step back and hand over to you, Sophie. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I've set up here just on a dining chair, but you could be doing this on the couch, on the sofa. Our key things to really set up is that we want to feel our connection to our support. So that might look like a little kind of getting the wriggles out, getting the zoomies out, a roll through the shoulders. We might shimmy around in our seat. And so that we've got that quality of feeling like we are supported, even just on the sofa. Again, if feet aren't quite on the ground, you could chuck a pillow underneath there. Or if you want something a bit more stable to then also have that pressure through the feet and that feedback up through the soles of the feet, you could chuck a couple of books underneath the feet. So we are just bringing the floor or the support up towards us. So take a moment here just to shimmy around. You grab a pillow, maybe turning the head from left to right, and let's arrive. So we could take the hands just down onto the lap if that's comfortable, and that option to close down the eyes too if that feels supportive. And let's take a really deep round of breath to arrive here. And breathe in really deeply in through the nose. We'll send it down towards the belly and fill up towards the chest as well here. And a really slow exhale out. And then take a few rounds of breath here, just sinking into the chair. As you breathe in, notice what parts of the front of the body and of the chest might start to lift and start to rise. And as we exhale, can we bring that sense of almost letting gravity do its work? The shoulders might sink, the hips might relax down into your support. And that same feeling down to the feet and the toes as well. I'm going to take a few more breaths like that, settling in. And if you notice at any time through the practice that you feel a little uncomfortable, you feel free to move around. My voice is just a guide here, and take whatever you need from this practice. All right. We're going to keep that same sense of softening through the body, and we'll bring that in with our exhales here. It's almost like a gentle wave of relaxation comes across. We can soften the muscles around the face, the chin, the jaw, into the front of the neck. We're softening the muscles around the abdomen and the belly. Notice if you are bracing, like holding on for impact here. And can we gently soften that with the exhale? Can we let that go? And those same feelings going down through the hips, through the back of the thighs, noticing what points of the body are in connection with your chair and with your support. And down through the lower legs, towards your feet and towards your toes. And let's start to take that awareness back up from the toes. And as we breathe in, track that up the body, all the way up towards the top of your chest as the chest rises, as the lungs expand. And lift the crown of the head, and then take a slow exhale all the way out. And here you could keep the eyes closed if you like and just follow my voice. I will demo these movements as we start to wake up through the body. So if you're not sure, take a peek, and we'll start by lifting up with our hands here. Let's begin to make some fists with the hands and start to circle around just a few times. Almost like this exploration is kind of like a baby exploring their body, like when they realize they've got little hands and feet, that we're just exploring these movements for the first time. It doesn't have to be any which way. It doesn't have to be these huge circles. We're moving in a way that feels nice for our joints and our body. From here, we can gently unwind. We're going to take the arms down by the sides. Have a little shake off, some jazz hands, if you will. We can wriggle the fingers. And on our next breath in, we take the arms wide either side of the body. Like we're stretching, expanding our wings out, even through the fingers. We take them all the way up and overhead to come tall. Now palms can come together just over your head, and we'll gently bring that down. So prayer hands coming through to heart center. Let's take that again, and we'll take our breath at the same time. So big breath in, expands through the chest, through the arms, through the fingertips, like our wingspan expanding here. We reach up. Maybe the gaze goes up too. And that slow exhale sinks the hands through to heart center. And go for one last round like that. That big breath in. Expand through the shoulders, through the arms. And that slow breath out. And we'll meet here with thumbs just towards the heart, the center of the chest. Now from here, as we breathe in, let's see if the crown of the head can grow a little taller. So imagining like we have a little string upwards here. And with that sense of lengthening through the back of the neck could come in. And we could tuck the chin just ever so slightly here. So there's a broadness that comes in through the shoulders. And with that, keep pressing into the palms of the hands and into each finger and into the thumb here. The elbows might start to widen as we take that equal pressure from left to right side. Now with the fingertips, let's send them away. So point your hands away from you, so almost like a diving motion here. As we do that, round into the spine. You might bring the chin forward or down towards your chest here. And with your breath in, the elbows come back to the sides, fingertips press in, and hands can go back to that prayer. Let's take that once more. And we'll start to push away, gentle round through the spine. And let's bring that all the way in. So let's release the arms and the hands, have a little shake off here. Now, if you are sitting on a chair like a dining chair where you can grab a hold, feel free to do so onto the side of the chair. If we're on a sofa, just making sure that we are sitting back towards the chair, feeling supported. And we'll start to get some movement through the spine, the rib cage, and our torso here. So to begin, I'm going to start by lengthening the spine and taking our arms up just like we did before. As our arms come up and overhead, let's start to twist, and we'll take our right arm forward and our left arm back. Your right hand can come across the body towards your opposite thigh. Your other arm could here be holding on to the side or the back of the chair. If you're on the sofa, just pressing down for some support here. Now, in this gentle twist, we're going to want to breathe into it. So again, remember that 70-80% marker. Once you've found that and you feel like you can breathe comfortably here, as we breathe in, see if the crown of the head can lengthen upwards slightly, and see if with the exhale, you can soften through the belly and through the waist. And on your next breath in, we'll take that back into center. Our arms can come with us to lift our spine up. We'll go long and overhead. You take that over towards the other side. And settle in. Find your percentage and find your props, your support there. As we breathe in, the crown of the head lengthens. And as we exhale, we might settle and soften in. We can come back to those slow, steady breaths that we did right at the beginning. Our next breath in, we'll bring that back into center. Arms can come up and high. And with our exhale, we'll just gently bring them down, and palms can come down onto the thighs here. We'll roll the shoulders back. And we'll come into some cat-cow movements. So bending the spine here. We push down through the toes and through the feet. And as we breathe in, the chest will come forward, shoulders roll back, tailbone back. And as we exhale, we can round the spine, chin can come into your chest. With that breath in, hands might come back slightly to bring chest forward, shoulders back. And exhale to round that through. And go for one more round like that. That breath in opens. And exhale. Let's bring that back into center here. Let's widen the feet just slightly. It's a little bit wider than hip distance also. Hands can be down onto the thighs, or again, if you want a little bit more support and you have access to the edge of the chair, we can grab on there. We'll start to spiral or circle with the spine. So I kind of imagine I'm drawing this spiral like a kind of beautiful garden path with my rib cage. I'm big into the visuals. So if there's anything else that works for you here, feel free to use that and to drop that in. As we're doing that, it's almost like we're trying to get the ribs from side to side as well as that forward and back motion. You can change up that direction and put it into reverse. And go around one last little spiral here. And coming on back into center. Okay. From here, let's take the arms up and high once again. We're going to send that tall length into the spine. And this time as we exhale, we'll fold forward. So this could be where if we don't want to compress too much through the belly, if surgeries and things happening here, we can take that cushion just in front. And as we start to come forward, finding whatever angle feels good. From there, we could then start to round the spine. The chin can start to get heavy. And so we're creating a stretch between the back of the shoulder blades and letting ourselves just kind of be the big flomp, I like to call this. We're just flomping. We're just hanging out. And let's use our inhale to bring ourselves back up, creating that length in the spine and coming up tall. Let's take that again here. We'll take our arms wide to begin. We'll reach them up and overhead. Then we can start to hinge forward towards the thighs. Maybe then we find that cushion, or we find our elbows coming down onto the knees for support. From there, keep exhaling to round into the spine, to soften the face, to let it go. And slowly bring that back up. And take a moment just to notice how you're feeling, how the breath feels in the body right now. And we might realign, shimmying our hips in our seat. We can bring the knees a little closer together, about hip distance or wherever feels comfortable. And with our breath here, notice where in the body does the mind want to go to? And can we bring ourselves back to the breath? Breathing down to belly, breathing up to the chest, and exhaling fully. Let's get some movement down through the legs and the lower body here. So clasping the hands, we can pick up with our right leg. Now, if this isn't available for you to grab onto, you could use a belt, a bit of a dressing gown or a blanket, just as like an arm extension here to allow the leg to come up slightly. The foot lifts away from the floor, and imagining this is my foot, we're in a circle with our toes here. So just like we did with our wrists, you might have some clicks that come out. It's okay. Explore how all the toes are feeling today. How does the heel feel? And let's stretch the toes out really wide and then scrunch them in. Let's gently relax the foot and the ankle here. You're going to bring that movement up towards your hip. You can take your knee, your leg out towards the side. We're going to bring that in, almost like lubricating up the hip joint here. And you can go a couple of times in each direction. Let's gently pop the leg back down. You can realign in the seat so you feel equal, supported on both sides. Let's take a little moment here before we change to the other side. What differences can you notice from the right leg to the left leg? How does this side of the body feel compared to the other? Is there a sense of maybe a tingling or a warmth? We're just noticing what's happening. And these practices are there to strengthen our connection to how our body feels at different times and after different things. So let's take that over to the other side. You can lift up with the leg. Okay, find your supportive seat. Again, grab a hold onto a chair, etc. if needed. And we can circle around with your foot. And clicks from the ankle can come out here. Explore the toes, scrunching and expanding. And like we are just discovering our foot for the first time. And often it does feel like we are just discovering our foot for the first time. I feel that every day. Wow, there are lots of creaks and things happening here. And we can relax the foot, bring that movement further up into the hip. So we are oiling up our hip joint here with some gentle movement. Doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be showy, because it's what feels good and what feels nice for us. I'll send that back around in the other direction. And take one last circle around before coming on down. Again, let's find that little comfortable seat here, where both sides of the body, both hips feel supported and feel held where you are. Feel into how that left side feels. What's going on that side? Has one side kind of matched up with the other? And do those sensations feel new and fresh, whereas the right side has settled slightly? And let's take a few slow, I guess more breathing practices and restorative style relaxation. Now, just as we move into the last part of our session together. So be comfy. If you are feeling a little chilly, this would be a good point to pop a jumper on, put a blanket on. I hope that people are in their pajamas because I think pajamas are made for yoga. Be comfortable. We'll start to really quieten down the mind a little bit here. Now, that can be very hard to do. That's why this is a practice in itself. So let's take one hand on towards the heart, and the other hand can go down towards the belly or onto the abdomen where it feels comfortable here. I want to just use our hand placement to notice where the breath is and where the breath is going to. And as much as we can, I want to breathe down towards our belly. Often we breathe really in the chest and we're not using that full capacity of our lungs. So let's create that that connection. Exhale out here and take a big breath out. And as you breathe in, send it down to the belly as if you're trying to poke your belly out. And we can keep that going up towards the chest, the shoulders, fill up the lungs as much as you can. And a really long sigh out. That is just as long as your inhale. And take that again. A really big breath down to the belly. We'll bring that all the way up to the chest here too. Keep filling up the lungs. And can we slowly start to let that go? And like again, that same wave of relaxation coming through here. And I'll go for one more round. And take that big breath in. An extra breath goes up towards the top of your chest and shoulders here. Can we fill up that little bit more? And a long, steady sigh out. And come back to a breath that feels steady and natural for you. And the best tool or practice that we can use for letting our body know that it's safe, that we can relax, we can calm, we can wind down, perhaps for sleep, etc., is by extending the length of our exhales. It could either be an equal length to our inhale, or we can make the exhale as long as it feels good. So these simple practices we can bring in even whilst we're in a hospital waiting room or receiving treatment. No one even needs to know that we are doing it, but we're connecting in. So a simple tool that I like to use that keeps my mind on this practice is just by labeling the breath. I just label in and out. Let's take this together for a few breaths. Now, I will count in each inhale and exhale just as an example, but feel free to modify this to whatever length suits you. Let's take a breath out to synchronize. We can breathe in for the count of 3. So we say in, 2, 3. We breathe out. We can breathe in. We can breathe out. 2, 3. And take that to whatever count, whatever level feels good here. That in and then the out. Maybe we bring in that sense of softening through muscles, that sense of letting go. Relaxing through the thighs. Noticing what points are supported by the chair, what points are held here. And the connection of the feet to the ground. Following that all the way up the body here. Softening the waist. Softening across the chest, through the arms, palms of the hands, each fingertip. And bringing that all the way up. Softening the face, the forehead, even the crown of the head. As we draw this practice to a close here, I invite you to find a position that feels comfortable with the hands. Now, that might be traditionally a prayer position, and it doesn't have to be. We could take hand to the heart, to the belly, palms down onto the lap, whatever aligns here. And I like to close just a final round of breath together, and using that in gratitude to this practice and a symbol that yoga is that union and that connection that we have towards ourselves, our body, our breath, and also to others that are around us. So let's exhale our breath together here to synchronize and let it go. And a big breath in here. Fill up as much as you can. We can open the mouth, sigh it out, and let it go. You might blink open the eyes, and just a note of thanks from me to you for joining in this practice. And I hope that it's been beneficial. And if there are any questions, feedback, thoughts, you just want to have a chat, because I love a chat, do let me know. And I'll hand over and pass back to Linda. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Sophie. Lots of lovely, warm sentiments coming from the audience now, and some comments in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
I don't
Thank
think we
you.
all realize how much we actually need this in our daily life until we're just given a little taste of it. This has been so restorative, and what a lovely way to spend the middle of the day. And hopefully this means that, people are feeling a little more relaxed, a little bit more grounded. That was so incredibly gentle. And
Yeah.
I imagine
Yeah.
it is just somewhere that you can do this in a car when you're feeling pent up, or sitting in a waiting room,
Yes.
or
Yes, that's it. My favorite place to do yoga is in the car park at the Royal Adelaide Hospital in my car when I've gotten very stressed because I can't find a space.
those everyday frustrations.
Yeah, but it's noticing that, like, I'm in control. Like, I can stop and I can just do those 3 big breaths. I've noticed and I've found changes how I feel going into those appointments, because I've just had that little time to recenter and focus before I've gone in, rather than that faff of, car park
Yeah.
hospital stress. Need I say more? That it's all that just coming back, those little bits. And as much as we can intertwine that in our day-to-day life, we're doing it. We're doing yoga.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it isn't just about perhaps the actually designating time to it in your day, but how you
Yeah.
can actually incorporate it into just the everyday moments
Yeah.
that you're just talking about then. So I think it is incredibly valuable, and I can see so much benefit, particularly with blood cancer and symptom management, and
Yeah,
uh,
that's it. With those,
stress.
yeah, big times of stress, and with fatigue too, of how much that, chemo, whether that is for a stem cell transplant and that recovery, or whether that is ongoing chemo maintenance and whatnot. My big goal is to make it less overwhelming, because for me, as someone that had practiced yoga for 9 years, it was incredibly overwhelming to go back to my yoga practice. So what I would love to do is to have that be so available for everyone, that, yeah, it doesn't, you don't have to wear leggings, you don't have to be on a yoga mat, you can be doing the washing up and maybe doing some heel raises and doing some deep breaths.
Yeah.
It's all those things that we can bring in, because I remember feeling so, you know, so fatigued, and through that recovery, when it feels like you can just get through, you know, feeding and showering and whatnot, can we add this into to our days, and make it be as accessible for each individual as possible. So it's been a huge labor of love to create my course, which will be released in January, which is very, very exciting.
Wonderful.
And yeah, and just to be here with you guys. It's just it's yeah, really great to have had this opportunity to share something that I feel so passionately about, that hopefully can help everyone that is in touch with the Leukemia Foundation.
Absolutely. And we will be certainly sharing this far and wide. And thank you to our audience who have joined us and had this wonderful experience today. You know, I think what I've discovered in talking to you today and other times, Sophie, is that yoga really is about that, just that exploration and being really open-minded about our body and our mind and that connection. Encourage the audience to really take a moment now after this session to notice, you know, your body and your mind, and, you know, how you respond to this experience. If something from today's practice really resonated with you, you might like to keep exploring yoga as an option. I can see that some people in the chat are already exploring yoga as an option and wanting to expand on that. And for others, it's probably something very new to you. But we do encourage you to look at what's available in your local community. We will be sharing a resource when we share the recordings, which will have some information about how you might go about finding what's available in your local communities. So next week, same time, same place, we'll be moving into our energizing session, where we'll be focusing on techniques that help boost vitality and uplift. So we really look forward to seeing you then. Take care of yourself, move gently, and thank you again for being a part of today's session. If you do have any further questions or require support, Jen has put our email address and our phone number, the 1-800-620-420, in the chat, or you can jump on our website, a very new and lovely website, mind you. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. For now, take care and go gently. Bye.
Bye.